They must not know I love trips to Vegas. The underdog became the underrated. In my city, I'm paraded. Confetti dropping when I'm home. I'm floating down Tudor, floating on strong. Had so many rights they couldn't tell us we was wrong. Lamar Middle School, we was on. I got this lion heart in my chest. I'm one of the best. They ask about him, they gon' bring up success. See, I've been fighting this stress. You ain't right, you get left. I'm good with my left, so I don't argue with refs. Cause just like EA, I'm in the game.
Hey everybody, it's Rob here with We Give 110, and we have Sean here again with us, our master of mind manipulation and getting yourself into that right set. Now, Kerry is hopping in here. He's running around. I think he's in his garage right now, so he'll be joining us soon. Yeah, oh, he's flexing muscles, but we can't see him.
There he
is.
Make it happen.
So we're going to be talking about, we're not crazy when you're talking to yourself. I mean, a lot of us do it, but there's an important reason why you should be doing it and what you should be saying to yourself. So we're going to get Sean talking about that, and I'm waiting. This is cool because it justifies that I'm allowed to talk to myself. So.
All right, so I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Talking to yourself is normal. Kerry does it all the time, and he's fantastic at it. So we are going to talk a little bit about the topic of self-talk. Now, this is not just the outside voice. This is mostly internal, all right? So we have most of that go on the inside. Right? We're very rarely are we talking out loud to ourselves. Sometimes we mumble or accidentally say a phrase or very, very, very small portion out loud. Like a lot of times my wife will be doing something and I'm not really like in a conversation with her, but I'm in earshot and she's like, oh yeah, and I need to do this thing or whatever. And it sounds like maybe she's talking to me. I'm like, oh, what are you saying? And she's like, oh no, I'm just talking to myself. Like, that's not what I'm talking about, okay? Because that's more just an expression in the moment, okay? That's just an outward idea flow, okay? What I'm talking about today is the internal conversation. Because the external one, you don't answer yourself. Oh yeah, I need to do this today. Okay, go write it down. Like, You don't hold both sides of the conversation when you're verbally external. All right? And so this is why we're going to talk about the internal self-talk being the one you need to pay attention to. Because this is where you hold both sides of the conversation. And this is very important because you are now the output and the input. And so the things that you say to yourself are the expectations. And that's what this really comes down to, is this is the primer for the subconscious response. All right? And this is why it's so important for you to be aware of the things that you say to yourself, because they trigger an automated response in the way that you act. All right? And so if we put this into context, if we go into a situation and it's brand new, okay, you're not going to have a good expectation. And a lot of that expectation is going to be built up in your head however it's going to be. So if you are Rob Paisley, for example, entering, say, a marathon. I don't think Rob's ever ran a marathon that I know of. He did one. He did a marathon. Okay, so he's done it one time. Now, the very first time he showed up for that marathon, he had no idea what to expect. And I bet he had all kinds of crazy self-talk going on. He was like, I've trained for this, but I don't know how hard it's going to be. There's people that are here who are way better than me. This is my first time. I don't know if my body's going to be able to handle it, but I've put in the work. I'm in pretty good shape. There's all kinds of all over the place. All right, but you can hear both sides of the conversation. Is like Yeah, you're going to do pretty good. Yeah, but there's also people who are better than you. But you've been doing really well and trying really hard and putting in the work and training. Yeah, but these guys have done it way more. Like, you're on both sides of the fence here. You argue with yourself in your head. Okay? And so here's where, first of all, it comes down to is... And we're going to bring this back on almost every show that you guys ever watch. So if you haven't watched any of our shows up to this point on We Give 110 here, go back, watch some replays because it builds on itself, all right? And so, again, bringing it back to what we're talking about is focus on what you can control. And this is how it really comes down to, okay? So number one is being aware of what it is that you're saying to yourself. Number two is being in control of the words that you give to yourself, because if you control the output side, the input is automatic. Okay? You take it in automatically. So if you're aware of what is going on in the situation, and you're saying to yourself things that are going to benefit you, because the reason I'm here is to put myself into the first marathon. The goal is not necessarily to beat everybody else, because you're only going to compete with yourself. And guess what?
It was to survive.
It was to get through it.
To the
because
end.
that's you competing with yourself, because you don't know your limit, because this is the first one. I don't even know if I can get through this. My personal best is survival. Right? And so what you're talking about at this point is all of the coaching around yourself. What do I need to do to get myself mentally prepared, to make sure that I'm breathing correctly as I'm moving, to make sure that my gait is consistent so that I keep my heart rate controlled, to make sure that I hydrate consistently throughout the race? Like, those are the pieces that you really want to put in front of yourself when you go into a task. Okay, so if it's the first time, you're going to be all over the board with expectation, and that's going to put a lot of emphasis on the emotion side around the talking, the conversation that you have with yourself, and the dialogue is going to be amplified. Okay, after you've done it 2 or 3 times, you walk in cool as a cucumber. You got no emotion. You walk in, I've done this before. I know what to expect. I got my training on point. My nutrition is right. I got myself hydrated. I've oxygenated. Like, I'm good, let's do this. You know what I mean? And it's very easy to envelop confidence. And that's what that calm and collected feel is. It's confidence based around that belief of, I know kind of what I'm walking into because I've done it a few times in the past. And so that dialogue that you have with yourself actually impacts the outcome. Because the words that you say walking into this. Now, if Rob goes into this the first time, and he is on both sides of the fence very heavy, and he allows himself to say whatever, most of the time it's going to come to a negative stance, because we want to guard ourselves from pain. We want to avoid that breakdown and that situation of failure and the physical pain that it's going to put your feet going, that many times onto the concrete and moving your legs for 26 miles and the lung burn and the mental fatigue and all the things that physically are painful, but also the fact that, like, you put yourself against somebody else as the comparative point, and they've done it before and they're better than you. Like, maybe you can't compete with their time, and so you're going to put yourself in a mental anguish that you're not good enough, and you can run yourself down into the ground before you ever even hear the gun go off. But go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things that I went through when I was doing professional darts. It wasn't a long distance race. It wasn't anything like that. It was the repetitive action of throwing the dart into the board at the same spot. Like, you have muscle memory, you have all that, but it becomes a mental game.
Yes.
And it wasn't that I had to beat the other person. I mean, that was in my brain. I had to beat that other person. But I had to beat myself to be better at what I do.
Yes. Yes.
And that focus can be draining in itself.
It is. There's a mental energy that comes with that control of awareness, and the control of the thought process. The good thing is, okay, and here's the magic is you get to control the choice of either side of this conversation. You can beat yourself up and drown yourself into the ground with all of the possibilities of negative outcome. First of all, you don't control it. The conversation you have with yourself does not determine how good that dude runs. And that's what you have to understand is you don't control them. You are running against yourself. And if your version of yourself does it faster than their version of themselves, then you can get a trophy that says you win. Right? But if your version this time did better than you did last time, you still win. Okay? That is the point, is to progress in the areas that you can control. And so if you come into this situation having it be the first time, you win. Every first time is a win because you're going to do it better than never. I've never done this before. Okay, the first time you win. So starting something new is never a scary situation. You're always going to do it better than you did the last time because you've never done it before, so there's no bar. 0.5 is always better than 0. Maybe if your goal is 10, okay, but 0.5 is always better than 0. So no new situation should ever be scary. It is a learning experience of how good am I right now? And then I'm going to learn, and based on however I do right now, then I can take that into the next time that I come into this. I'm going to carry an expectation and belief. I'm going to carry an understanding of the process, your level of confidence, your preparation set. All that stuff is going to allow you to do better next time. But
yeah, and I think Kerry can talk to this one better than I can because, I mean, he coaches like little kids and teenagers and stuff like that, and they take that information and they've seen their success, and, you know, Kerry boosts that with them, helps them understand that, you know, if they keep going this way, they're going to get better, and that reinforcement is really helps, you know.
Before an athlete can do anything, they have to see themselves doing it. And so that's what a coach has the ability to do, is interject that vision, that thought process, that repetition. That's not just about, listen, it's not just about the physical reps. You will learn more by doing mental reps than you will in the physical reps. You might get one ground ball in a line of 10, but I get 10 ground balls if I'm focused and I'm paying attention and I'm telling myself, what am I learning here? How can I get better? Because I'm the person that when it gets around to me, that has to make that catch, not somebody else in line. So it's just like, how can I leverage that thought process of, you know, talking to myself and saying, hey, get mental rep after mental rep after mental rep so that I can be better once I'm in that position. You know, I heard that story of a high jumper. I don't know the exact name, and maybe it's just a fable in the track and field world. But there was a lady that was paralyzed, and she was a high jumper in, I think, the 1960 Olympics, and she couldn't actually compete. And so every day she would go out there in her crutches and she would visualize her steps that she was taking. And then about a year and a half into doing that process, she actually got better. And there was an opportunity to qualify for a meet to go to the Olympics. And at that point, she was healthy, and she had done enough mental reps that it put her in a position to succeed in that moment, right? Compared to, she could have taken the opposite step and she could have focused on those other thoughts that could have led her down a different path where it's like, I'm thinking, oh, well, why is this happening to me, right? So anyways, just personal experience story.
No, exactly. And these self-talk situations come into play so much. And this is why it's so important, is because this can vary. I've seen stats all over the board, but it's usually 50 to 70% of you by yourself in your head in a conversation. And it's an analysis situation. It's you looking at where am I at, what is going on, and figuring out the things of how do I want to respond. What do I want to do in this situation, right? But if you don't have an expectation, you're just going to come in and do it however. And so you getting yourself geared up to perform the best when you finally get the opportunity to actually take an action. That's exactly what Carrie's story was about. Was that lady didn't take action. She sat there in her head very intently training mentally to say the right things, and the visualization will follow. When you tell yourself what it is that you want to do, what you are ready to see happen, your body can make it happen. It is absolutely insane. But if you tell yourself, and there's the very common saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And this is what it comes down to, is especially athletics is such an easy sake for this. It is not about the person that is the most athletic. It is not about the person who is in the best shape. It is always, always a success comes to the person who is the most prepared. And the preparation starts in what you do before you step up to the plate, or line up for the dart throw, or whatever it is. It's the practice ahead of time, the physical reps, the mental reps, or whatever. But it is that establishment of confidence when you go into the action step. That is what determines the words that you say to yourself. If you know that I am able to take whatever this outcome is and analyze on it and accept a win, or learn from something that didn't come out to meet my expectation, either way you win. You're getting better for the next time. Because guys, there's very, very few times. I got one thing that I'm going to do in my life that I'll probably do once, and that's skydiving. I'm probably not going to practice to get better at it. I'm going to do a tandem dive and let some dude run the show, and I'll just be there and get the adrenaline rush, right? But most other times when we do stuff in life, we're probably going to do it more than once. Very rarely am I going to flip the chicken over in the frying pan one time. There's going to be 70,000 times that I end up doing that, right? The first time I flip that thing, I'm going to get splattered with grease and it's going to hurt real bad. But I'm going to learn next time that, holy cow, maybe I need to tip the pan a little bit and do it less intensely, or whatever. Whatever the situation is, the first time is always just setting the bar for the next time. But the way that you act in the moment is determined by the level of confidence and security you have in yourself to be able to accept the outcome for whatever it is and to learn from it so that your next action step is a better one. That includes the physical repetition, that includes the mental repetition. But it all comes down to the words that you say, developing that confidence to perform well.
And I was having this conversation with my team today, and my grandmother, she's getting to the point where she's probably in her final days. And one of the things that she would tell me is you don't understand the power that you have as a coach and the impact that you have because of what you can say to those kids in that moment, whether it be at bat, right? So a prime example is we have a few kids that play on Tanner's baseball team that really struggle with the ball coming towards them, they're afraid. And it's just everybody, every dad, everybody wants to say, oh, don't be afraid, little Johnny, stay in the box. But in reality, that kid's still afraid. And saying that don't be afraid is going to fix the problem is really the what you say matters in that moment. And so just how I use that skill that you're talking about and leverage that is by focusing on what I want him to do. And the positive things that I want him to see. Look, I just want you to stand here. I don't want you to swing. Just put your feet in the dirt. Watch this ball go by. Don't even move. Just watch it go by. Don't even try to swing, right? And in that moment, the kids just rep. Ultimately, that I get to pitch that vision and paint that vision for that kid. So, if you're a parent or if you're a coach, and you see that kid struggling, the negative thought process or the negative words that you use could actually be detrimental. And so That's just another thing that I've experienced this week, that like your words matter, right?
Yes, very, very heavily. And that's like the sporting thing, again, is such a classic example of why repetition matters, because you do it so many times over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And when you get to that Olympic level, you know, you get to that professional baseball level or whatever it may be, like the pinnacle, you have done it tens of thousands of times to the point where when you go into the situation, you are so progressed in it that you're probably not even thinking about the action step. Like those professional baseball players are probably stepping in there like, you know, I was talking to my wife about where we're going to go and, you know, have dinner, and like they're having a completely other conversation because they are so comfortable. It's so automatic because they have done the thing over and over. But taking that first step is always the scariest. And what Carrie was saying is, give yourself a baby step, okay? Give yourself something that you can ease into. Like, I wouldn't recommend that if you have never run any kind of competitive running races before, to start with a marathon. Like, they've got a 5K you can jump into and ease into it. You know, they have walking 5Ks if you really are slow into getting going, right? But like, Carrie, I'm not a runner myself, but the point is, there's a baby step you can move into that allows you to get more comfortable with new situations. And this is what is magical, is we encounter new situations our entire lives, all day, every day. And so the more you condition yourself to get comfortable with controlling the words that you say when you come into a new situation, the more comfortable you get dealing with new situations. Because how you act in a new situation is based on your confidence walking in. One of the things that we'll talk about in the future is the way that you show up speaks for you before you say any words. Right? And this is that confidence coming out. People can see whether you're confident or not before you even take more than 2 steps. The picture on your face.
Yeah. One of the big things that I had was when I was playing darts, and like I use this one because it's a good sports analogy for me. I was playing and I would go and I would practice, and you know, you talk about repetition. You know, like I didn't walk to the line with 3 darts. I walked to the line with 12 darts, and I would fire because I knew that I could still hit different targets on the board and not really have to worry about it. And it got to the point where I was so confident, and that the people around me were so confident, that I started doing things like, you know, like the little trick shots and stuff like that people would try doing. Most people, now, please don't do this at home unless you're very well practiced. My wife would put her hand on the board, and I would shoot the darts between her fingers. And then one day I wasn't perfect on one of my shots, and it touched the side of her finger. And she goes, okay, none of that. But she would stand, and she will still stand in front of the dartboard, and I can William Tell the bullseye behind her head. Because I know the flight trajectory. I know where my hand has to go. And the muscle repet, but I have to visualize it. You have to visualize it, because if you don't, I'm going to put that dart in the middle of her forehead. Yes. So that repetition and that talking to myself and understanding what I can do, that confidence can build in yourself, but you can also projects itself onto others around you, and you can see them trust you as well.
Yes. So that's huge, because what you were just talking about is you have to develop an unwavering confidence in yourself. Because, first of all, you're competing with your own back and forth, right? We haven't even put other people into the equation yet. What I'm talking about is the words that you say to yourself and how you receive them. Okay? It's very important to get that piece under control, because you are the receiving and the output side. You control all of this. But when you go out into the public, then they put their words out. And how you receive them depends on the confidence level that you are at in that moment. Right? If you walk into something and you are not confident that you're going to walk up to that plate and not get hit by the ball, if you are absolutely scared that you're going to get hit by the ball, and people in the crowd are saying, hey, you're going to get hit by the ball, hey, watch out, that ball's going 95 miles an hour, you're going to believe them. You're going to allow that input to intake a reference that is similar to what you have. But if your reference point is, hey, I'm going to crush this ball because I have done the reps. I've let it come by me enough times where I know it's not going to hit me most of the time. Sometimes maybe, but very rarely, because the guy isn't trying to hit you. He's trying to get it past you, right? And he's practiced on his end to get it past you over and over and over. And so for you, if you have that confidence walking into the plate, I'm going to crush this ball, and somebody in the crowd yells, hey, you're going to get hit by the ball, you just laugh. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't have an impact on your actual swing. Okay? And that's what's important, is you being able to control the confidence level of how you act in every situation. Not only forces you into controlling your own internal conversation when it's you by yourself, but the better you get at that, the better you get at controlling what you allow to come in when other people get involved in that conversation as well.
Yeah, and you said it earlier about things that trigger, and so my experience is, growing up, I didn't understand how and what things triggered me and why I reacted in a specific way. But now knowing that and saying those things to myself and knowing what other people say and what I allow in, like, it can affect how I make decisions emotionally, right? We were talking about this last week, Sean, and it's like in that moment you have a choice to be calm and confident or to react emotionally by how you let other words inside of this thought process up here, right? So it's not just saying to yourself, this is what I need to become, this is what I need to do, but also blocking outside influences in the same way, right? I have to have that filter. And for me now, I know when I'm triggered. I know when I'm aware that I'm aware. And so in that moment now, I get to make better decisions and say, you know what? Calm down, have your sanity. You're doing okay. You're moving forward. You're taking that step in that direction. It's okay. It's okay if other people perceive it differently. They can't put that on me. That's not them taking my steps, right? So in that moment, I've learned to, like, when I feel like I'm acting emotionally, like you've always talked about, at that moment I stop, I pause, I step back, and I go, what am I saying to myself, and what are other people saying to me? What has caused me to react in this way? So
yes, and that is the step, is it always comes back to awareness in the moment. You have to maintain a conscious control of your thought process, and those thoughts become the words that you say to yourself, and that develops the feeling that you have. And we all operate from feeling way more than we can ever control. We are beings of feeling. We are all in search of a feeling all the time. And so the words that come from our thoughts are what develop how we are emotionally charged. And that is a big piece of this, is you cannot, okay, this is the magic, guys, in here. If you take out any magic bullet from today, any gold nugget, this is it. You cannot be positively charged and negatively charged at the same time. You can't be happy and sad at the same time. It is impossible. And so if you structure yourself to envelop positive self-talk and positive self-emotion driving engagement, when you come out to somebody else, there is no way for them to put enough negative in unless you've already got something on your side that's going to allow that scale to tip in that direction. All right? So yeah, if it's a 50-50, You just have to stay in your lane. You have to keep that awareness that, hey, I'm controlling my emotion. I am controlling my thought process. I'm good. Here's the steps I'm going to take. Here's what I'm going to do. Because again, how bad I talk to myself and how much I think I suck or whatever does not determine how this dude runs. It only affects how you run. So you just control the words that you say to yourself, and that will develop that positive emotional base. You'll develop the confidence when you move into the situation. You can block out that outside noise, and you can focus on taking the action in the best way that you can in the moment, so that you can then step out, reanalyze what happened in the situation, and prepare for the next activity. So hopefully that makes sense in the world of sports. But man, in any situation, it is the exact same thing. You've got to have that positive word flow. You've got to have good things coming to yourself. The Stuart Smalley affirmations. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. I don't really care so much if people like me most of the time, but I'm good enough and smart enough for sure. And so I can walk into a situation and learn how to do it very, very quickly. Because I just control my own factors and I keep my focus on the thing, and I'm not worried about what other people think or how it affects them. So that is what allows me to progress faster in most situations than people I've competed against, even if they were better when they got there when I did, right? So guys, I'm excited about this. This is something that hopefully this makes sense. If it doesn't all the way through, you got to watch all the other episodes because they keep building all the way up to what we're talking about today.
Yeah. And this whole conversation about talking to yourself in your brain is something I do every time I go to the refrigerator.
Every time you make any choice, any choice, you're talking to yourself about it. What am I going to do?
It's like you have to make those conscious decisions, and sometimes you got to check yourself. Like if I'm going to eat this, what am I going to eat later? And we were talking about this earlier, right before we came on. I said, I'm dying for a hamburger. But I know the conversation in my head is, if I go and have that hamburger, the next hamburger is going to be easier to go get.
Yeah.
And I have to check myself, I was like, I got food in the fridge that's healthier, and it's probably going to satiate me better.
Most likely. Yeah, burger doesn't keep you full too long. No, it is though. It's that self-awareness. Every time you go to make a choice, every single choice in conscious frame requires an analysis period first, where you look at all the factors around what's going on in the situation, and you look at what decision you want to make. How am I going to respond? How am I going to physically act? And then you take a step based on that choice. But how you determine what choice and what step you take is heavily, heavily influenced by the emotional base that you are in when you start the analysis process. Because if you don't have a belief going into that, you don't have an expectation moving into that activity because you've never done it before, your belief structure isn't really established. And so it's very easy to guess at ourselves and get negative and fearful because we don't know what to expect, right? And so if we know that we're going to learn regardless, and we're not based on what is the outcome, how good am I going to do, whatever, it's like, how can I take the best step to get involved in this situation? That's the only thing that you can control. You put yourself into that positive mental frame, so that when you're in the analysis period and you're looking at the situations and what's going on, Terry's got his car going off. It's still there. No one stole it. That's fantastic. But when you prepare yourself emotionally because you say good things to yourself, like, hey, regardless of what my outcome is, I know I'm going to be ready, for next time, or, I haven't done this before, so it's okay if I'm not that good. Like, you can say the same things to yourself, but how you frame them allows your perception to be set up to take an action that will put you into a positive outcome. Whereas if you put yourself in a negative mindset and you're afraid to step in the batter's box because you think 1 out of 1,000 I could get hit, this could be that 1 out of 1,000, and then you're too timid to even look straight, there's no way you're going to swing and hit the ball. right? But if you walk up and like, hey, I'm going to crush this thing, and you pump yourself full of adrenaline, I promise you, if that ball hits you, you're going to be more pissed at the dude than you are going to be that your arm hurts, right? Because he sucked at his job that he's been practicing so long to get the ball past you, right? And so don't ever put yourself in that negative situation ahead of time just because you don't know what's going to happen. Most of the time, even if you think you know what's going to happen, it doesn't go that way anyways. These professional teams train over and over and over and over and over on one play. One single play to get it perfect. And then they get in the game and the other team changes their defense and it looks differently than what they thought they were going to face, and things are out of whack, and holy crap, it didn't go how I thought it was going to. So we had to call an audible, and we had to shift over here, and we had to have this guy line up differently, and they had to change who they were guarding. And in the moment, the analysis goes down. And then when the ball snaps, boom, okay, things just happen in 2 seconds and it's over. And then you go back and you look at the play film. Ah, okay, so now because they shifted defense and because we did this, and this is how we reacted, and this was the outcome. And you try to set yourself up better for the next time that similar situation comes out. It may not be the same team, but you may be trying to run the same play that you did last time, and somebody else shows up with that, 6-6 defense, and they got the guy out in wide field, and it looks very similar to what happened last time. And because we did that, we're going to call this play. And like in the moment, decisions happen very quickly. Okay? You cannot set yourself up for success if you try to guess all the time. You have to be good at responding. Because it's not about what happens, it's about what you do about what happens. And so all you can do is your best in the moment, and you do that more effectively by saying good things to yourself about the things that you can control, which is how you're going to act. Okay? So, sorry I went a little over on that, guys, but I just wanted to finish with that piece.
Yeah, another thing that I did is when I pole vaulted in high school, and I've told this story before, but my head coach, Rick Keith, he was an 18-foot pole vaulter, pole vaulted with Earl Bell at Arkansas State, and man, that dude could fly. Anyways, beside the point. Every Wednesday, he would say, go over there and sit down on the mats, and I want you to visualize your success. So what he would say every Wednesday, go visualize your success. Every Wednesday, 30 minutes, no less, no more. I would go over there, and literally the entire meet, I would see it before it happened. And he would come over, and I would be telling him how the meet was going. Like, he's like, all right, you're in the stands. All right, you're getting out of the stands. Did you see those girls off to the left-hand side? They were checking you out. Like, he was putting me in that moment. He was a character at the same time, but he was putting me in that moment so that I could see myself doing it. One thing he also taught me is that is the only thing I need to focus on, not anybody else or not other distractions that are going on around me, but what am I doing? Right? He would try to distract me with a girl with a red dress. But it was to teach me to focus on myself and what I had to do in that moment, and not allow other people's outside distractions or perception to cloud my judgment, right? So that I'm late to the party, right? That I'm not warming up properly, that I've got my head and, thinking about hanging out with my girlfriend after this. Like, he would be on me about every little thing mentally because he knew how important it was to my success, especially in the sport of pole vaulting, right? It's a difficult sport to contort your body in this pole, this graphite pole that's just like bending and throwing you up 15, 16, 17 feet in there upside down. So it's just like you have to be prepared in that moment or you could literally die in that moment, right? So,
and that's another thing too is actual repercussions for bad outcomes make it even more difficult. The good thing is, the way that we live our lives today, very rarely, look at, he's got the poster and everything. Dang, very nice. We are very, very fortunate, though, these days that we don't live in a situation where we have to pole vault very often, right? Most of our lives are in such controlled situations. Like, I'm going to throw my wife under the bus a little bit, but like, she had to go get her teeth cleaned. And you know, it was something that she hasn't done in a while, and so she was just kind of like nervous about doing it. And going into the situation, she's all up in arms about how it's going to go. Oh, it's a new doctor, I've never been there, and blah, 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 you know, and just like, it was very difficult for me to even combat the negative self-talk that she had because it was so powerful. I could tell her things like, hey, I've been to this dentist, they were great for me, you know, the people talked to me the whole time, like, no matter what I could say positively, I couldn't impact how solid she was in her head, right? But after she went in and got the thing done, she came out, I'm like, how was it? Wasn't really that bad, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, you weren't pole vaulting, okay? This isn't something that had any real bad, you know, outcome possibilities. Like, maybe they nick your gum or something and, like, you're bleeding a little bit. That's worst scenario. Most of the time that isn't going to happen because they also practice not to nick your gum.
Carrie. Say another funny story. Same year, going down the runway, and I plant, and this pole, it splinters in 3 different places. The top part that I had in my hands, it scalps my head. I had it in my closet with my hair and my scalp like pulled out at the end of this pole. I kept it as a souvenir. The other part hit me on the inside of the leg, and the other part shot 125 feet behind me. Now, why do I tell this story? Not because it felt good to have that happen. What happened after that, in that moment, applies to what Sean was talking about today. My coach said, go pick up that pole. I said, what pole? I was still dazed. He's like, that other pole over there, your other pole. He's like, pick it up, get on the runway, and give me another run through. And I was like, yes, sir. And as I started running down the runway, just wobbling, he stopped me about halfway. He was like, I was just going to see if you were going to do it. Go over there. You're done for the day. But I wanted to teach you that I wanted to know in that moment, you're not going to be afraid and allow your mind to take over and your thoughts to take over about what the next time is going to look like.
Yes. And what you just described is worst case scenario. So now that you survived the worst case scenario, and you know that's not the normal scenario, every other time is easy comparatively. We have to push ourselves with limits to know what's possible. And dude, if I bust a pole in 3 places, it takes my scalp off and I'm still here, what are the odds that's going to happen again? Like, never, right? How many times have you seen people pole vault? Thousands. That didn't happen to anybody else. It was one-off weirdness. And guys, stuff is going to happen in life. You can't run around afraid of the things that might happen, because you will miss all the opportunities and all the times when it's not pole vaulting. But if you compare everything to pole vaulting, because there was that one negative experience I had, you have a bad relationship with somebody and it goes downhill, that doesn't mean every other relationship you have in the future is going to be a broken pole that scalps you. You know what I mean? It doesn't all come out like that. So you can't always have the expectation and belief structure because of how it happened in the past. Here's how it's going to happen in the future, because you learn and you get better. You know, I bet Kerry learned how to inspect his poles and look for cracks and weak spots and seeing, hey, is this the pole I want to take? Because before that, he grabbed the other one and didn't care what it was. It was probably already fractured in some way or had some weakness identification, but he wasn't paying attention to that because he hadn't had that experience before. So...
yeah, the funny part about the poles, they're so expensive. So I had one pole. Funny story. I had one pole purchased for me in 4 years I was in high school. And it was my freshman year when I went to the regional track meet as a freshman. And I had it in the parking lot and my coach backed up over it. and smashed the bottom part of it. So I had to cut it off 6 inches, which was okay. It ended up working out. Bottom story is all the poles that I had came like hand-me-downs. So I broke probably 10 or 15 in high school because they were nicked. They were all nicked. If I would have had new ones, I would have been okay. I broke pole after pole after pole. I broke 3 poles in one meet.
Wow. Okay, so maybe this does happen a little more often, but let me remind you, most events in life are not pole vaulting. Okay, so we don't actually have to expect ourselves to be injured or come out in some really detrimental way.
But you know what it taught me? In that moment, it taught me to pivot. In that moment, I had a choice to make. Do I take this thought or do I take this thought? Like, literally. I mean, what do you do and how do you respond to being hurt that way and getting right back up and wanting to do it again?
Yes.
How do you develop that muscle, that mental muscle, right? That says, this is how I'm going to approach this next time. I'm not going to take that last or past experience. Maybe it wasn't so great, right? Maybe I did run that marathon. Maybe I about passed out and died myself, right? Like me, my sister, she can do it, but me, I would die. But maybe it wasn't a great experience, but maybe the next time I do it, maybe I'm more prepared and maybe I take a different vision into that next experience too. So to me, I think it's just being able to, in that moment, like you were saying, visualize and say the things that I want to do, but also being able to pivot when things don't go your way, or maybe you aren't as successful, being able to pivot in that moment too.
Yes, exactly. And that's, something I've said in past talks, but disappointment is always when the outcome doesn't meet your expectation. Okay? Every time you broke a pole, that was not what you expected to happen. And you could be extremely disappointed if you expected to never break a pole. But after you broke a couple of poles, you kind of just learn that's part of sometimes the outcome comes out this way. And so your level of depression or disappointment goes down every single time that unexpected outcome doesn't come in the play, right? And so regardless, you either get the outcome that you expected and you win and you celebrate, or every time you take the same situation and you do the thing again, the unexpected outcome is less detrimental. And so again, it all comes down to the words that you say to yourself, either before an activity, walking into a new experience, or afterwards, where you're analyzing what just happened. How did that go, and what do I want to do as a response to this? Maybe it's after the broken pole, or maybe it's after the meet, or maybe it's after the season. Whatever it is, that level of self-talk that goes on in your head never ends. It is 24/7, and it constitutes so much of how it is that you interact in the world, that if all you ever get good at is telling yourself that you can do it, that you are good enough, you're smart enough, and it doesn't matter if people like you, because you're still going to do however it is that you're going to do regardless of whether they like you. Okay, that doesn't, their internal self-talk does not determine how good you run. So only put it on yourself into what you can do to control the activities that you take when you go into that situation.
And I think there's something to learn with a guy like Jake Paul. Now, do I like his pompous ass attitude? Not really. That's what you despise as a coach, but we should learn something from the thoughts and the things that he says to himself, right? And in that moment, like, everybody has a choice to make. Another thing that I think is important too is surrounding yourself with individuals that think the same way. And I'm not saying they have to believe what you believe. That's not what I'm saying. But in terms of positive thought reinforcement and making sure that I have a choice to make in that moment, and I can either, point the finger, and I can be the person of power, or I can be the person that's encouraging and is open-minded and is thoughtful and allows the best ideas to flourish, right? In that moment, I get to make a choice on how I move in that situation, right? I got a choice. I can either do this and do this, but it's a linear choice. Like if you make that choice, you got an outcome that's coming with it, right? So it's like you gotta surround yourself with people that in those moments are going to reinforce you, is what I'm talking about.
Yes, exactly. And what you're just talking about is the reason that we're here doing this call. This is a reinforcement of people who have similar thought process, and we're coming back every week, guys. This is not like we throw out one thing and then we're gone. In order for you to get better at stuff, first of all, you have to be consistent. Secondly, the people that you surround yourself with determine how you act, because the conversation that they put in, as good as you are, as good as you get to be at controlling your own internal self-talk, the conversation of those around you has an impact on the decisions that you make. And so you need to get really good at controlling yourself in your talk, because you don't control what other people say, but you do control who you're around. You get to control who you interact with for the most part. So if you make good choices about the people you interact with and do that consistently with the people who have that similar mindset, and you bring your own level of confidence and positive self-talk to that situation, you can flourish very quickly. And when there's enough positivity in your world, any of the negative crap that happens is so easy to overcome. It's so easy to look past and not allow it to emotionally bring you down. So, man, you guys got some good stuff coming in on this today. We are all over every sport. We didn't talk about wrestling. Russell's going to be upset about that. But in every activity you go into, Rob's going to bring it in. He's going to body slam Carrie through the computer or something. But talking to yourself.
No, I did wrestling. I was a wrestler. And I did have this issue. I actually, we were talking about my neck earlier, right? And that's how I injured my neck. But I mean, I got back on the mat. You know, like I was almost paralyzed. The person did an illegal head and arm. Right? He let go of the arm and he basically just took my head over. You know, and he didn't perform the move correctly, and basically I ended up kissing my belly button. Yeah. If I wasn't in good shape, I probably would have been paralyzed from the neck down, but I just pulled a whole bunch of muscles and it's affected me, and I'm now 46. You know, like that's 30 years of going through a whole bunch of stuff, and not until just last month did a chiropractor actually do something. Because they were like, okay, it's been long enough. We can try to give you adjustments. I'm feeling great. But I still got back on the mat. And I still love wrestling. And I'm pretty sure Russell's going to say the same kind of thing. He's probably been dropped on his head multiple times, and, on his quest to becoming like a national champion and stuff like that, and you just got to get back in there. Carrie had the pole rupture and slice him through the head, like I'd be freaking out. But I mean, I got dropped so many times, bad ways, bent arms, whatever. But I mean, you get up and you keep going. You talk to yourself. You go, it's not going to happen again.
Yeah, you definitely have to reinforce yourself after those negative outcomes to come back in that stronger situation. But at the end of the day, too, you also get the choice of what it is that you're going to do. Sports is not a forced hand. Jobs are not a forced hand. Relationships are not a forced hand. There's almost nothing in this world that someone is going to put a gun to your head and force you to do. So if there is something that you are just out of your mind afraid to do something else. If you get something that just destroys you, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, you can learn and choose later on, do I actually want to repeat this? Like, maybe that marathon was so hard on you. Maybe you already have knee problems and your ankles are destroyed and you got bad feet and your arches collapsed and like you caused yourself physical injury doing the thing. Like, maybe marathons are not a good idea. You know, we gotta analyze whatever that situation is and come out of it with that learned experience knowledge and say, hey, what am I going to do about the next thing? Because that's the only focus that you can put it on in what you can control. Whatever already happened, happened. You cannot change the way that thing destroyed you. You are destroyed right now. I can go soak my feet. I can take it easy on my knees with low impact. I can put icy hot on my muscles. Whatever the hell you're going to do afterwards because of the thing. Okay? That's the only next step that you can put in front of you. If you sit there and dwell on how dumb it was to run the whole marathon just to say you did, okay, you can like get mad at yourself about that. And next time, you know, hey, if I'm breaking down and my body isn't going to make it, I'm going to give up and say I wasn't ready this time and I'm going to learn and do it better next time, whatever. But like, if you already did it, you already did it. Grinding on yourself and saying I shouldn't have done that and I'm an idiot and blah, 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 you can just tear yourself down more emotionally, which again, that focus does not allow you to have any positive focus on what I'm going to do to help myself. I need to go soak my feet and I need to get off my knees and I need to, you know, get my muscles relaxed. I got to get my ice bath in or whatever it is. Okay, what is the positive next step? What is the next step I'm going to take? Next step. That's always the focus. So,
and then also being self-aware, recircling back to that. Another analogy. I broke this stadium record. I was pole vaulting over in Dallas, and it was pretty weak over there as far as pole vaulters. But anyways, I jumped 14.8, broke the meet record, and then a couple of kids backed out of our 4x4. So with nobody on or around, I was like, I'll do it. I mean, I just broke the record. I'll step in and do this thing. That was me not being self-aware and knowing why I don't run over 100 feet, right? 100 feet is perfect for me as a pole vaulter, but that's one reason why I shouldn't be running like 400s, 800s. I should have been self-aware in that moment and not allowed other things. Like I was great at pole vaulting, but you know, knowing in that moment, hey, it's probably not so great that you do this, but I'm going to do it because I'm a teammate. So being self-aware in that moment, but also giving a little, right?
Yeah, and that's a lot of what this comes down to is you don't know what your limits are until you push yourself. So I take it from your story that you accepted that invitation to the 400 and destroyed yourself trying to run around that circle. And so that...
when I crossed the finish line, I literally was like, you know, and I went right into the where the timers were, like there's a bunch.
Okay.
I ran right into it and I sat down.
Yeah, and so now that you have that experience, you have that self-talk, the next time someone offers you the 4x4, you're like, last time I about near died, so I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton to somebody else who can actually run and pass the baton, right? Like you learn how to make better choices through experience. And so if you hold yourself back from experience because of fear of the unknown of the outcome, you're never going to know what you're actually able to do. And so you either win some physically, you get a trophy because you won the race, or you learn some because you didn't win and you fell into the clock at the end, right? But
I was actually winning that race to 300 meters, but they don't have a 300 meter race.
No, that last 100 is where it all comes down. That's what people train for, is that strong finish, right? You can get halfway around, it don't matter. It's who finishes first. So, guys, at the end of the day, though, the things that you talk to yourself about, whether it's before, during, or after a specific moment of awareness, maintain that positive focus, because it helps block out the negative of the outside. It helps you control the negative from coming in on the inside and allows you to take good actions in the moment and make good responses after that, because you now have more learned knowledge you can carry with you. So I appreciate you guys today. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, and I appreciate you, Sean. Thank you so much for being here. Of course, you're going to be here next week, and all these people, like we said, You got to go see all these other videos because they all build on each other. They build and build and build. And when we're talking about mindset, having this conversation with yourself, putting that out there, making those choices, keeping that positive attitude, and moving forward is what you got to do. So if you're in the process right now where you're sitting there going, what do I need to do to move forward? What do I need to get that extra $100 a week? How do I lose that extra kilogram a week, or 2.5 pounds, each week? This is a mindset you need to do. What you need to do is get over to Equibala.com, get some of that mindset and stuff like that. And if you need that background and that people to push you, you want to go out and get the personal journal, right? From We Give 110, you can still get it, still download it for free. And there's going to be more stuff coming in as Carrie and I are evolving what's going on. You're going to probably see more of Sean coming up in other facets of the business as we discussed it with him. And so once again, get out to Equibala.com, sign up there, free stuff there. Go out to We Give 110, free stuff there. Also hit us up on Instagram at We Give 110, Facebook, We Give 110, Facebook groups, We Give 110. We're all over the place. We Give 110. So if you need it, we're here. Sean's going to always be available. You can hit him up. You can send him DM messages to him through the Facebook group that he has there as well at Equibala. I think that's all we got to wrap up. So next week, Sean, do you have an idea what you're going to be talking about?
Oh, we're gonna keep it a secret for next week because I feel like we've been letting the cat out of the bag too much, and then everybody feels like they already know what's going on. So you guys got to check back in with us next week, early on a Tuesday. We're gonna announce what our topic will be and let you guys know what you can look forward to.
Cool. So we're gonna throw it to the outro. If you have any questions, hit us up on DM, and then we'll get right back to you. And of course, once again, We Give 110, Equibala. You know where to find us. We're here to help you. Have a great night.
Have a great week, guys.